Sixth grade, welcome to another week of science. Last week we stopped right in the middle of the chapter. In fact, we stopped in the middle of the lesson. So we're in lesson 3 today, halfway through it. We were talking about sexual reproduction last week, the joining of an egg and a sperm from two different parents. And then the last lesson talked about meiosis, the splitting into sex cells where we have half the number of chromosomes we need. So when you take half from mom and half from dad and you put them together, you're back to your original set of chromosomes that makes each individual a unique. We ended then talking about how fertilization works in flowering plants, how they can be cross-fertilized. In other words, pollen from one plant from the male makes it to the egg of a different plant, or they can self-pollinate, which means the male part gets the female part all within the same flower. Today we're going to move on. We're going to talk about fertilization in animals, and then we're going to end our lesson with a little bit of a review of the differences between asexual and sexual reproduction and the positives and negatives of those. You got your notes sitting out here as we continue to move on with these last 3 pages from this lesson. It says when animals reproduce sexually, they too must join a sperm and an egg cell. Fertilization can take place inside or outside of the female body. Many animals that live in or near water, number 2 already, use fertilization that takes place outside the female body. Notice it's many, it's not all. This type of fertilization is called external. External means outside. We're going to use that term in math class as well this year. During external fertilizations, animals simply release sperm and eggs into the water. The sperm swim to the eggs and fertilization takes place. Each time a sperm and an egg unite, a zygote, remember that's the term for as soon as an egg and sperm unite, we call it a zygote, so that's one cell back to a complete set of chromosomes. They form a new individual and it starts to develop. The staghorn corals shown in the picture are animals that use external fertilization. They live in the waters around the Florida Keys, the Bahamas, the Caribbean islands, and other areas of the world. In August or September of each year, they release sperm and eggs into the water at the same time. Billions of sperm and eggs can be released at one time. So guys, over here into your notes, with external fertilization, it's literally billions of sperm and eggs are released at one time. In humans, that number for eggs is usually 1. That's why mom gives birth to 1. Now the male sperm, there's obviously millions of those as they try to get to the 1 egg. But once the egg gets fertilized, guys, that's it. In external, it's different. They release billions of sperm and they release billions of eggs. The question is why so many and what happens to them? Animals like the staghorn coral that use external fertilization usually produce large numbers of sperm and eggs. But tragically only a few of the fertilized eggs will survive to become adults. Many will die because of environmental conditions such as severe weather or pollution. Others will be eaten by predators. So as you continue to fill in your blanks, guys, why do we need billions of them? Because many won't survive due to environmental changes, conditions, or they'll be simply eaten by predators. So you think about fish. The female drops tons of their eggs, the male come by, they drop their sperm, they create all these things. Now guys, in water there's obviously currents, so a lot of the sperm never even make it to the eggs because of the different waters moving around. Then those eggs get fertilized and there's all kinds of animals that eat those fertilized eggs for their food source. So they're constantly getting eaten by predators. Then those that make it start to learn how to swim, and now you have all these little minnows out there. Well, what's happening to tons of those little minnows? They're getting eaten by other fish. So that's why very few actually make it to become adults. Even though we might start with up to billions, you might end up with only 5 that make it to the next generation, guys, okay? External fertilization would be difficult for land animals because the sperm and the eggs would dry out too quickly. For most species of animals that live on land, fertilization takes place inside the female body. Okay, so land animals in general inside mom, water animals in general outside the body. Fertilized eggs also need moisture, number 5. In some animals, the zygote develops in the female body where it is moist. Humans, mom carries the child. Many animals that way. Other animals such as birds and turtles though have eggs with shells that protect the developing within the eggs from drying out. So the eggs keep it the moisture it needs, and then it also provides protection from other damage. So this is just the safety mechanism, where with birds we know they sit in their nest. Turtles will bury their eggs so that you help protect it with the right temperature. Okay, so God in His infinite wisdom says what's going to give them the best chance and how can this work. And so we have external and internal fertilization. In water, normally external. On land, normally internal. All right, turning the page in your science book, scrolling down here, we're going to learn why they differ and what that means for us. Unlike individuals produced by asexual reproduction, offspring produced by sexual reproduction share characteristics from both parents. Each individual then has its own set of traits. Okay, so we're down here, you have your own set of traits. What does that mean? The individual may look similar to their parents, but each has its unique DNA, from what we learned last week with meiosis. Recall that when male and female sex cells form by meiosis, each cell receives only half the DNA that is found in other cells of the individual's body. During fertilization, the sperm cell and the egg cell unite, and the DNA of the two cells combines. The zygote that forms has a combination of DNA from the mother and the father. For example, the puppies in the picture have the same mother and father. How many differences can you see among the 4 puppies? Each puppy is unique because each is formed from a combination of a different sperm and egg. That means that each puppy inherited a different combination of DNA. Those different combinations give the puppies different characteristics. Okay, guys, so you got a picture. You can see, obviously, they look similar. Lots of that, we'll get that. We talk about that with humans all the time. I get all the time, "Mom, you look just like your brother." Yep, I might look like my brother. Number one, I'm not just identical to my brother. We have differences. But number two, there's also a lot of other differences that go in there that aren't just, do you have the same hair color, height, things like that, that go along with that, okay? So, big, huge difference here, guys, when we have this unique DNA. Remember when we were talking about genes last week? It said a gene might be up to 2 million base pairs combined together to give you one gene. Okay, those 2 million base pairs aren't going to be the same in your siblings, and that's what makes you unique DNA. Let's talk about the difference between sexual from this lesson 3 to asexual, which we talked about in lesson 1. You might wonder which type of reproduction is better, sexual or asexual. The answer is that each type has both advantages and disadvantages. Now guys, this chart is awesome. It'll be asked for you on your test. So keep in mind, what I try to do is I try to take that chart over here on your notes, and I kind of, in my own opinion, broke it into what I consider positives and negatives. I'll tell you why I did that, but 6th grade, please understand this is my opinion on why I made them a positive and negative. You might disagree with it and say that's a positive. It's your call, but you have this list here and we'll go through it. Asexual reproduction is the simpler form of reproduction. It often can occur very quickly, producing many offspring in a short time. And one lone organism can reproduce even if the closest individual to its species is hundreds of kilometers away. So I put what's a positive? It can happen very, very quickly. We talked about bacteria every 20 minutes. Okay? Asexual reproduction takes less energy than sexual reproduction. The reason is that asexual reproduction, organisms do not have to use energy to make sex cells. They're not taking energy to split apart, guys. If they split apart, that's a whole new offspring. The reason do not have to use energy, this can be an advantage when energy supplying food is scarce. Okay? So in other words, lots of times we'll look in the animal kingdom. If the winter was really hard, the next generation, there's not as many offspring, simply because not enough creatures had enough energy to waste, and I don't want to say waste, but to use energy to produce the next offspring, so they just work on staying alive through the winter when food gets scarce. That's not true with asexual, so it requires less energy. It also only needs just one parent cell, so less energy, just one parent. Now why is just one parent good? For what it said here. If there's only one species of bacteria in 100 kilometers, the bacteria doesn't say, "Man, how am I going to find a mate? I can't get that." No, that's it. You don't need a mate. Okay, with humans, that obviously, sexual reproduction, humans is an example of it, becomes an issue. I have to be around a group of the same species so that we can find a spouse. Because all organisms produce asexual reproduction have identical DNA as a parent cell, their survival in an environment may be threatened if conditions change. Think about a group of amoebas living in a pond. Suppose most of the amoebas are offsprings of that same parent amoeba. Those amoebas have identical DNA and therefore the same traits. The traits enable them to survive in their environment. What would happen if the water the amoebas live in suddenly became warmer? Since the amoebas are all alike, all can only live within a similar temperature range. If the water becomes warmer than that range, all the amoebas would die. So I wrote that as a negative, guys. Because you have identical DNA, a change that would kill one is literally going to kill them all because they're all identical. Now, that's not true in the animal kingdom that reproduces sexually. We have that phrase, survival of the fittest. And so as the environment changes, yeah, some of the animals are going to die, but some of them with unique, better DNA are going to be able to live on. They are the fittest. They're the strongest. They'll be able to make it. Now think about another group of organisms living in the same environment. The difference is that those individuals resulted from sexual reproduction. Each individual has traits that are slightly different from those of other individuals. Some may be able to survive in water that is a little warmer or a little cooler. When a temperature change happens, some individuals have a better chance to survive and reproduce. They will be able to pass on this trait to their offspring, who also will be able to live in the warmer water. In other words, individuals who have traits that make them more suited to the environment survive and pass on the traits to the offspring. So because of the unique DNA, guys, you have a better chance of surviving. You see that in humans. Track records are constantly getting broken. Why? Because humans are literally getting taller, faster, and stronger slowly over generations, and that's why track records are slowly being broken, because the strong pass on their traits. That I think the animal kingdom is even easier to see this. If I'm a strong lion and I can run really fast, I'm always going to eat. I'm a slow lion, I'm not going to be able to catch dinner, am I? What's going to happen to me? I'm going to die before I mate. Many animals, guys, are designed by God to mate with the strongest. So it's deer hunting season right now. The male bucks are trying to chase the female does, and what do the male bucks do? They fight with each other. So a male buck, if I'm the biggest, baddest buck in the neighborhood, I try to fight off all the other little bucks so that I can have all those females. What is he doing? The strongest are surviving. He's got the best genetics. He's the biggest. He's the strongest. That's how it works. That's sexual reproduction. Okay, I broke it down to positive and negatives. It's a slow process, guys. I wrote that as a negative because it's going to take time to reproduce. You think about humans. It takes 9 months on average for the baby to grow inside mom and be able to survive. In elephants, it's like 2 years. So guys, that can take a long time to get that going. It takes more energy. If food sources are scarce, that becomes a major problem with the child not developing or the animals never finding the time to get there. You must have 2 parent cells. So guys, more energy, 2 parents. Now, I'll talk about the positive of that, but 2 parents simply goes back to this one. You have to have parents in the same area if you want to be able to reproduce. So you think about animals that might be chasing each other off or not having enough, or as the population goes down, that can be a negative. We produce offspring with unique DNA, so you have unique DNA. What does that give us, guys? Number one, that gives us a variety. They come in different shapes and sizes. Humans are the great example of this. All the different shapes and sizes we come in is because you have unique DNA. That goes to what we talked about here. You have a better chance at surviving changes that might happen with the environment. Humans might not be the best example of this. We're really good at surviving anything, whether we're strong or not strong. But like animals or plants, guys, that they can make those changes. And then I wrote down the improved species. This, in my mind, is the survival of the fittest, we say, how you are slowly getting better. We'll talk in your next lesson about selective breeding, how we got corn plants to slowly get bigger over time. We did that in the introduction to this chapter. That goes along with that. So we have improved species that comes along from sexual reproduction because they're not identical. Beautiful chart. You got this thing filled in. We made it done with the lesson, guys. So you got the worksheet. That worksheet encompasses all of lesson 3, including what you started with at the end of last week. Blessings on it.